Welcome back to A Case for Cannabis. My name is Alfredo Matthew, founder of Working World LLC, and I am here with Amber E. Center. You have so many titles, I'm not sure what to use. Co-founder of Supernova Women, CEO of Breeze Distro, and I know you have some others. Welcome to the show, Amber.
Thank you. Entrepreneur, that's cool.
Entrepreneur extraordinaire, hustler from Chicago, from Atlanta, now Oakland, California. Tell us a little bit about how you got here. Because you're not originally from the Bay. You're bringing some Chicago, some Atlanta. Where were you and what attracted you to come?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Chicago. I left Chicago when I graduated from high school. I went into the military, went into the Coast Guard. And when I finished in the Coast Guard, I moved to Atlanta.
Okay.
And I lived in Atlanta all of my 20s. That's where I really came into cannabis. My love for cannabis, love for the plant. I mean, I've been a smoker since I was 18, but really became very passionate about cannabis in my 20s. Learned a lot about the plant, became an advocate when I was in Atlanta. And then I was diagnosed with lupus, and I needed to go to a place that was that I could have access to medical cannabis and the products that I needed to really help me deal with those symptoms from lupus. And so I moved to California, to Oakland in February of 2014, and started working for an edibles company, and
there you go.
Here I am.
Your background is graphic design. Tell us a little bit about how that background and that kind of professional, background helps to support your work now.
Yeah, so before I got into cannabis, I was doing creative direction, art direction, graphic design for really big companies, Home Depot, Walmart, Dyson, ESPN, Coca-Cola, and I obviously learned a lot.
Yes.
going through the motions of that, and learning how to design for retail environments. That was kind of my specialty, that and mobile applications. Not like mobile on your phone, but mobile as in car, like car wraps and things of that nature.
Okay, cool.
So I learned a lot about just elements of good design, and especially designing, labeling for products, selling products in retail environments. So I just applied a lot of that to cannabis. I saw a need for cannabis, needing to elevate their game. This was 2013, when things were still coming in plastic bags, a little Avery label, printed out on a home computer, slapped on a plastic bag with a Rice Krispie treat in it. I was really looking to bring a lot of branding and my expertise into cannabis.
Well, so much of the industry is in the process of being professionalized. So many of the aspects of the industry are being formalized. So branding is a huge part of this. In addition to that professional background, you also got started in advocacy work before you came to the Bay. What kind of advocacy campaigns were you involved in?
Yeah, so I was living in Atlanta when I really started to get involved in the advocacy side of cannabis. And, it's still illegal in Georgia. They do have medical laws, but there's no smokable flowers. Still tons of barriers in Georgia. But
to that and other things.
Yes, yeah. But when I would show up at protests. The Peachtree Normal, which is an advocacy group, part of the Normal network. They have a Georgia chapter called Peachtree Normal, and I would show up at the Capitol, and we'd have protests. you know, and just stand out there with signs, talk to people about why criminalization is wrong and putting people in jail for weed is wrong and why cannabis needs to be legal. So started that back in like 2005. Showing up at protests and things like that, and just started to get more and more involved in advocacy because I was seeing how obviously it was disproportionately Black and brown folks going to jail for cannabis.
Yeah. I mean, I'm learning so much. This war on drugs is just one chapter in a long history of the way Black and brown folks have been marginalized through this plant over time. When you came to the Bay Area, though, it seems like your career has really taken off. What about Oakland, what about the Bay Area attracted you, and what have you found here that has really allowed you to expand as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, to expand as a political activist? What is the movement that you're working on and that you're a part of?
Yeah, so you know, Oakland is the birth of so many movements. Oakland is warrior ground. This is where the advocacy and advocates are really trained and born. So, you know, look at the Black Panther movement that started here in Oakland. We look at the medical cannabis movement. You know, that started here in the Bay Area. So the Bay Area is really just very energized, and there's a lot of thought leadership here around advocacy and really teaching folks how to stand up for themselves and to advocate for change. So when I came here, I worked for a gentleman named Mickey Martin, and he was one of the biggest cannabis advocates at the time, advocating for patients' rights and for medical cannabis. And I came here, and he introduced me to a number of people that have taught me so many things that are tools that were really fundamental in me figuring out how to do community organizing, learning community organizing, and learning how to rally the troops and create a movement, essentially.
So from 2013, 2014, a lot has changed, right? Recreational cannabis, they call it recreational cannabis, right? Kind of became legalized in California in 2015, 16, that was around
2018.
18. But it took years for that, right? So it was like a slow burn from the 15, 16 to 18. And that's also when the equity movement was kind of born. What was the birth of the equity movement? What role did Oakland play? What role did you play? What is this cool Supernova? We can't, maybe if you turn around, they'll see Supernova women. What is the work that you've been involved in?
Yeah, so, you know, I didn't start this whole, well, really, I mean, we've been having this equity conversation for a long time, right? Yeah. Like, Black people are disproportionately going to jail over cannabis. What are we going to do about this, right? That's kind of the premise of the conversation. And I started going to cannabis conferences in 2014, 2015, and I met one of my Supernova co-founders there, Nina Parks, and she and I were the only women of color at this whole place, and we couldn't believe it. We're like, why are we the only black and brown people here? You know, it was really, it just didn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And so we started talking about trying to figure out ways in which we could get more people from our community just coming to cannabis conferences, being involved in this industry that we knew was headed towards legalization. And so I met my second Supernova co-founder, Sunshine Lencho, at a networking event and she was volunteering there, and she was looking for a job, so I helped her get a job, and we became friends, and we were working at a firm where we were writing applications for a number of different groups seeking out cannabis business licenses across the country. It was Maryland at the time. And we noticed that these groups were overwhelmingly white. We were writing applications for 22 groups, and they were all white male groups. And
we're like, ding, 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 wait a second.
Yeah, we're like, this is happening before our eyes. Like this is this rush of people going and obtaining these licenses, and none of these people look like us. And Maryland is a very black state with no black applicants. So this was a problem, and the barriers were so high. The firm that we were working for at the time was charging $60K to just write the application.
$60K to apply.
To apply, and then if you win,
you gotta buy the license.
You still gotta buy the license, but then you gotta pay the firm another $60K because you won.
Oh my God. $120K to get to the starting line.
To get to the starting line.
And then you have to pay for the license.
You gotta pay for the license. Often you have to show that you have proof of funds. So they'll require you to submit a letter that says, from the bank, that says, hey, this person has $2 million in their bank account.
Well, you can't get a loan. So you have to have it, not a loan. You have to prove that you have all the capital to start the business before you can get the license.
Yes.
All right. So tremendous barriers that exist, right? That's one of the biggest problem. We were just talking about it. Access to capital, number one barrier to enter this industry. What did you and your other Supernova co-founders decide to do to address this situation?
Yeah, so we see this happening around us, and we're like, we got to do something about this. We need to at least get our community and people involved in this conversation that this is happening, and here's how you can prepare. So we decided to form our group, Supernova Women, in November of 2015. We had our first event in downtown Oakland in January of 2016. We invited the community. It was a free event, and we held 2 panel discussions. One was around kind of like the legalization landscape and what it could look like and what was happening in California. And the second panel was a panel of Black entrepreneurs speaking about their experience in cannabis at that time and what it was like to be a Black cannabis entrepreneur and barriers that you faced, things of that nature. And it was a huge success, you know? It was a huge success. We had over 120 people in attendance, standing room. And we're like, wow, we're really onto something here. We need to keep this going. So at the same time we were doing that, we also started showing up to Oakland City Council meetings and advocating for things. Hey, we need to make sure Black and brown people are included in here. These barriers are very high. We need to set aside a certain amount of licenses for Black and brown folks. And we came just constantly giving testimony, voicing our opinions. We bring talking points. We print out, 100, 200 half sheets with all of our talking points and pass them out to all the people. Before these city council meetings, we would do blasts on social media, tell people to show up. We would show up to these things. We'd bring food. We'd bring fried chicken. We'd bring stuff so that people wouldn't leave, so that they would come there and that they would stay and give testimony. And all of that worked.
It actually worked. And Oakland created the first equity program in the United States. And Supernova Women, along with many others, were part of enacting this initial legislation. But there was also state legislation that in 2018 that supported equity programs. And now there's multiple equity programs across California and it's being built out in other municipalities,
Yes.
right? What is the purpose of the equity programs? And then in your opinion, how successful are they?
So the purpose of the equity programs is to level the playing field.
Yeah.
But really to give opportunities to Black and brown folks, because this industry was built on their backs. Mm-hmm. And so we have to give our communities that don't have all these resources a chance to participate.
Yeah. If you're excluded from capital markets, if hemp, I just learned, was the third largest cash crop in the United States before the Civil War, right? This is a plant that's been around for a long time. Slave labor built and, maintained this economy.
And it's real, it's not even, my grandfather was a sharecropper. He had to drop out of school when he was in 4th grade to help his mother pick cotton. Mm. That's where I come from. I don't come from wealth. Mm-hmm. My grandfather, he grind, started his own business, ended up becoming a very successful businessman, but he came from nothing. Yeah. This is the story of Black Americans. We come from nothing. Mm-hmm. Then you turn to our white counterparts. They come from, their grandparents were millionaires. Mm-hmm. Their grandparents came from wealth. Their grandparents did not have their cities, families, all these things destroyed.
Yeah. So, all right, so if we're talking equity, we're talking leveling the playing field. $120,000 to get to the starting line is not equity, right? And beyond that, this is a capital-intensive industry where you need money in the bank in order to secure a property, to build it out. I mean, right now, I want you to explain where we are right now. What is this property? But it requires real estate. It requires a lot of build out of infrastructure just to bring a product to market. And we need to address not having access to financial products. So that's a huge thing. Where are we now, literally in this place, and what are you trying to do both in this place and in the new facility that you're getting through the city of Oakland with Supernova Women? Yeah,
so this is Equityworks Incubator. It's one of the first shared manufacturing facilities in the country. And it's been funded by the city of Oakland. We incubate 6 social equity operators here. So operators that are licensed here in this facility come here and make their cannabis products, and then I help take them to market. Yeah. So what we've been doing is working with the operators, helping them become licensed here, help them develop their products, help them develop their brands, and then help get them on the shelves.
Yeah, that's entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Product development, go-to-market strategy, but you need your manufacturing operations, and then you get it out there. My second question earlier was, how successful are how successful are these equity programs? How successful, are you developing a formula that's working? Or if not, what are the things that what are the supports that still need to be built in order for folks to get to market and to launch businesses?
There's a lot that goes into entrepreneurship where folks need help and assistance. Mentorship. Mentorship is huge. Folks need coaches, business coach. And then there's a lot of bureaucratic tape going through these highly regulated industries. Cannabis, compounded with COVID, going through the permitting process took months and months and months and months.
Yeah.
It's an incredible amount of time. And while time is money,
Yes.
literally.
Yes.
So, who has the money to be able to try and push their permits through while still paying for a property
Yes.
that they're not generating any revenue on? So it's been incredibly difficult figuring out all these things. But as we're learning, we're making notes, making pivots, and figuring it out. We were thinking that we would have a new cohort come in every 12 months. That is not going to be the case.
No.
People need a lot more time than 12 months to get established.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, maybe there's different stages, right? This is one stage, and this is a 12-month. I mean, there's a lot that needs to be built out in the support ecosystem to help people launch viable enterprises. Tell me about the other facility that you're getting, because that is like an expansion of this.
Yes. So we have a 5,000 square foot facility, actually down the street from here.
Great.
We won a grant from the city of Oakland with a group of equity operators, Supernova did, partnered with 8 social equity operators. We wrote a proposal. The city had issued an RFP, a request for proposal. Mm-hmm. And our proposal won. And so we're using that $2 million that we won to purchase a building down the street. It's a 5,000 square foot manufacturing facility.
That's great.
And we'll be incubating a number of 12 social equity operators. We'll be running a workforce development program out of there. We'll be partnering with some community colleges on an apprenticeship program.
That's exciting.
So very, very exciting things to come.
So much in that to unpack. One, kudos on purchasing a property in Oakland. That's big. I want to hear why you decided to do that. 2, workforce training apprenticeships with the community colleges. That's exciting. How are you going to roll that out?
So we decided the city of Oakland knew it was they know that real estate is the second biggest barrier of entry. It's one of the top 3. And they wanted to address that barrier. And they knew that by purchasing properties and making them available to equity operators was critical in the success of these equity programs. So it was really important that we figure out a way to not just benefit the operators that we partnered with, but we wanted to make sure that we were bringing maximum impact to the community and creating as many opportunities.
Long-term impact.
Yes.
Generational impact.
Yes. For as long as we could, for as many people as we could. We wanted to impact maximum. Like, how can we help the most people possible?
And so real estate acquisition is one important piece of this. Workforce training and partnering with the community college system, right? California community colleges are supporting this series, which is, right, very innovative for a community college to be doing, but they're actually looking to be more relevant and engaging and meet the needs of the community. How are you looking to partner with community colleges?
So we don't have anything finalized with the community colleges.
That's okay. We will.
Okay.
We'll
Okay.
figure it out.
But really, we really want to figure out how to continue educating people in these real environments.
Yeah.
Like how to get folks trained up in careers in cannabis so that they can either decide to have a successful career or maybe they want to become an entrepreneur of their own.
Yeah.
Supernova actually ran a workforce development program that we just finished about 2 weeks ago. It had been running for 9 months. And we had 6 people in that cohort. And we trained folks on manufacturing as well as metric and compliance, which is seed to sale, track and trace, and compliance. And the reason why we decided to do those 2 things is that manufacturing has really the biggest, how do I say this? Yeah, it is the biggest margins. So you have, you can really turn manufacturing training into a career. Yes. It's also very transferable outside of cannabis.
Yes. Is it transfer? So I'm very interested in manufacturing, right? I think manufacturing, the investments that we're making, that the Biden administration is making into manufacturing, whether it's semiconductor industry, electric vehicles, right, sustainable energy, right? Manufacturing is like, and supply chain and logistics, like this is huge opportunities.
Yes.
So, but it is transferable. What manufacturing cannabis is transferable to other industries.
Yes, very much so. What you learn in manufacturing, making gummies, making edibles, you leave cannabis and do some of those same things outside of cannabis, just not infused with cannabis.
Wow.
So there's that piece,
yeah.
and then the metric and compliance piece, which is really big. Every single cannabis company needs a metric or compliance specialist. Every single one.
Yes.
And it also plays hand in hand with manufacturing. Lots of manufacturing technicians are going to end up having to input things into metric. So we wanted to make sure that we were preparing the workforce for the reality.
The real world, which is why the community colleges also need you, because they need actual entrepreneurs who are in the business, informing the curriculum that they create, informing the real world projects that they do, because you're gonna have, right, this is a nascent industry. You have to learn on the job. You can't study this from a textbook. There are no textbooks, so you can't study from a textbook. You gotta learn on the job. So that's really big. Now let's shift a little bit to you as an entrepreneur. You're not just out there doing all this social equity work and Supernova Women. You are a business owner yourself. Breeze Distro is your company, and you have some accomplishments.
Yeah.
You're doing something big.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
So Breeze, we're a manufacturer and distributor headquartered in Oakland. We're actually right down the street from here. And we make products, you know, we make branded products. Pre-roll specialists, we make a number of different kinds of pre-rolls. We hand pack high-end flower. One of our brands is the Congo Club, which is an African landrace sativa. Sativas are very, very difficult to find in the regulated market.
What is
a sativa? It's very uplifting strains, usually kind of heady, give you energy, but they take a very long time to grow. Where your typical indica dominant plant takes between 8 to 10 weeks, sativas can take upwards of 13 weeks. And when you're in the business and you're looking at that and you're seeing how many harvests you can get in a year, you know, most people would not go for the sativa because it takes too long. They're trying to get the most number of harvests possible. So they're going to go with the indicas, which are the fast flowering plants. So now when you're looking at the market data and what kind of cannabis is available, everyone says, what happened to all the sativas?
So Rachel Knox, who I know you also know because you sit on, she was just talking about what is going to happen when big cannabis, meaning like, you know, when cannabis really matures as an industry and there's lots of big corporate players and there's a lot of consolidation, what's going to happen to the biodiversity of the plant? Because what's amazing right now is the tremendous biodiversity that happens from having all of these small operators. all of this crap, all of the informal market, as much as, right, there's arguments to formalize everything, but you're getting tremendous biodiversity. So you're saying that, like, I mean, that is gonna go into everything that you're doing, like the kind of businesses you're looking to create. You're trying to maintain rich diversity of the plant. You're thinking through what the business models are that you can do with this, and Breeze Distro is at a phase where you're looking to grow this enterprise.
Yes.
Are you actually raising capital?
Yes, well, I'm just finishing and closing out my fundraising round, which is exciting.
That's very exciting.
Very exciting. So I've raised 1.75 million, which is, thank you, which is a really big accomplishment.
Yes.
Because I'm the first Black woman in cannabis to raise over $1 million. And I'm one of less than 100 Black women across all industries to raise over $1 million, which is exciting, but also heartbreaking.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
sobering.
I mean, we're gonna have to break this down, but 1 out of 100 women in the United States has raised over $1 million from private equity, venture capital. You mentioned statistics, and I know, right, 2% of VC money goes to women. I know 1%, less than 1% of VC capital goes to Black folks. But you said that 0.006% of venture capital goes to Black women.
0.0006. It's 3 zeros.
3 zeros.
Yeah.
So back to this access to capital piece, that is the bottleneck, that is the problem if there is no generational wealth, because that wealth has been taken.
Right. We don't have the networks to hit up our uncle's friend who's a millionaire. Our uncle is a millionaire. Our grandfather is a millionaire. We don't have those connections. We don't have those networks. We just don't have it. And that puts us at a huge disadvantage for finding any kind of private equity. Like, really, like, you don't know somebody who's rich. How are you gonna?
How are you gonna break in? You can have a pitch deck, you can have the financials.
But who are you pitching to?
Who are you pitching to, and how are you gonna get them to trust you with a risky investment? Because I imagine you're not just facing those hurdles, which all Black entrepreneurs face, but then you're the added hurdle of working in an industry which is not legal at the federal level, and which adds increased risk, and you shared can also add to increased cost because everyone wants to charge more for their services.
Yeah.
What are some of the additional ways that cannabis companies are being overcharged for services?
You know, we're charged for everything. Like, we call it the green tax. So you're charged extra up to 3 times as much for your rent. You're charged extra for your insurance. You're charged extra even for service fees on your bank account. And check this, in order to take in big capital, you have to have a compliant bank account, which means you got to go out and spend all that money and go through that due diligence to even get a compliant bank account. You got to spend money to get a bank account.
And then you need to spend money on a compliant CPA, and then you need to hire Zach Knox to be your compliant attorney for the tax.
Attorney for all this, absolutely.
Yeah, so this is, I mean, so why would anyone do it? Why do this? This is so difficult. Why do you do it? Why are you meeting so many people who want to work in this industry?
Because cannabis is such an important thing. It represents so many different things. It represents healing, wellness, liberation, freedom. It's all these different things. I got into cannabis because I suffered from lupus. And I saw how much it helped my quality of life. That quality of life is everything.
Yeah.
It's everything. And it increased my quality of life so much that I was just like, well, everybody needs access to this. And I was devastated at the same time because I knew what I had been taught and how this thing was illegal. And I just thought it wasn't right. It wasn't right. And I had to do everything that I can and that I could to work to change that.
Well, I'm glad you have. You healed yourself through cannabis, and you're not like I keep meeting people who have healed themselves because there isn't a lot of access to medical practitioners who understand the endocannabinoid system, as I'm learning about the endocannabinoid system. But a lot of folks are going to cannabis for healing and wellness. Absolutely. But there isn't a lot of formal medical care. There aren't a lot of formal pathways. Let's end with like a little look into the future. I know you're an equity advocate, and let's break down those barriers, access to capital. What are the other barriers that you would like to see broken down?
We need access to real estate, obviously, but this is a fine example of breaking down that barrier and what that looks like. And we need access to technical assistance and technical support. We need help navigating these systems. It is not easy getting a cannabis license. It's like playing a game of Tetris, or not even Tetris, like chess with lava on the ground, you know? It's extremely difficult.
Well, if someone's paying $120,000 to get their application in, that sounds like a pretty difficult application.
Exactly.
So we need technical assistance. Maybe we need less restrictions. We need less regulations.
Less regulations, less restrictions. We need less taxes. You know, they're going to suffocate us before we can even get going once we get the license, because we get bogged down with the regulatory structure and the compliance.
Yes. Don't you think that with federal legalization, though, it is going to get worse before it gets better? If we get federally legalized within the next 2 years, I heard that the Senate just came through today with, its first legislative, a bill.
Yeah, they did. And it's scary, because while the feds might say, okay, we're going to legalize this, it's legalized, that's an added tax.
Yeah.
So we can look to have more regulatory tape that we have to cut through, more taxes that we have to pay. And not only that, the banks will be able to operate, but do you think that Black and brown people will actually have access to loans through banks? We can look at the traditional industries, and we see how we're even left out there. So what makes you think it's going to work here in cannabis? Meanwhile, our much richer, wealthier, more well-resourced counterparts have all the access, and they'll be able to come in and really run it. So that's what we're worried about.
So I think it was you who were saying we're not ready for federal legalization? We're not ready.
No.
So it's like, hold up. We need to do this right. We need to plan for this. Let's not rush into legalizing something until we've had the conversations and until we have a plan in place.
Yes. Or else we're going to get run over.
All right. Well, let's not let that happen. Let's end on a positive note, because I'm so proud of you and I'm so impressed by you as an entrepreneur. You raised capital for the first time. I heard you do not really know what kind of business you have until you go to raise capital. Raising capital shows you your worth, right, out in the community. So that is a very big deal. Just end with, like, what is something that you're really hopeful for in these next 3 to 5 years? You've already put in a lot of work. You built a great reputation for yourself. You're helping a lot of people. What is next for you?
You know, I want to see these working components of the equity program scaled across the country. I want to see more shared type of facilities and not just restricted to manufacturing. We should have shared cultivation. We should figure out how to share a number of different spaces to lower those barriers.
So let's reduce barriers, level the playing field, and let's have more incredible entrepreneurs like Miss Amber E. Center. It has been a pleasure. Thank you for joining us on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
All right.